Everybody, happy Thursday. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Coyotes. I was about to say post-game show, but it's not a post-game show. It's a live show. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with Petey and Craig. We got Jacob behind the Mac today, or behind whatever he's on. I'm just really in my, I'm just rolling with what my brain normally does. That's how I'm doing. How are you guys doing?
Getting better. At least I'm telling myself that. You know what you said, Leah, about like, yeah, I think I'm a little better. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm not sure if I am any better, but
it's hour by hour.
Yeah, hoping. Still getting phone calls a day, a million text messages a day. So it's it's business as usual, I guess.
Arena stuff, Craig?
What do you think?
Yeah, it really leaves me the hell alone. I don't know. It's just this vibe. We had this talk with my wife. She travels for work too, and she goes to the lobby bar at these hotels. And every time she goes, she makes like 50 friends. Oh, I met so-and-so from this place. And I go, I traveled all over North America. I didn't talk to anybody. Like nobody wanted to. I think I just give off this vibe that leave this guy alone. He just like doesn't want to talk to people. And I said, I don't have those stories of, oh yeah, I talked to so-and-so at the airport. No, just stay away from me. I want to talk to you. And I'm having one of those kind of days today too. So I'm glad people.
I get that. I get that vibe from you today.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We're going to talk a lot about the future today because the present is a little scary. Coyotes not doing so hot, 0-6-1 since they last won, which is not great. They're plummeting in the standings. Basically, playoffs are all but out of the question. So we're going to change our focus and look ahead toward the draft as we did all of the last 2 years. This time it just took a little bit longer to come around. But before all that, obviously in last night's game, Connor Ingram didn't return for the third period. Bear said after the game, 7 to 10 days with an injury. We debated what move do the Coyotes make in terms of recalling a goaltender, and we found out today that the Coyotes recalled Matt Villalta from the Tucson Roadrunners. Not ideal for the Roadrunners, who are very much in the playoff hunt. Craig.
Yeah, in the hunt for the Pacific Division title, battling with Coachella Valley and then a couple other teams that aren't out of it as well. So not an ideal situation, but I guess if you look at it and say 7 to 10 days at most, that's 2 series. Maybe they can survive that long. Maybe don't worry so much about, oh, can we stay in first place? Can we stay right there right now? You just get through it. It's life in the AHL, right? This kind of thing happens all the time. It's obviously not ideal when you lose your starting goaltender who's an all-star. That's going to change the complexion of your team. But the AHL is there for a purpose. Its primary purpose is developmental, and it's to help the NHL club. So all the coaches that go into this understand that from the start. I'm sure Steve Potvin is just saying, yep, great chance for him. He always looks at the positive side of it, the opportunity for the player, rather than how is this impacting the team. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think we talked last night about what would they do in Villalta. The reality is he's the starting goalie in the American League. He's here to play in the NHL. His whole point is develop. Like if you bypass him and call someone from the East Coast, like it's honestly it's not fair to the kid either. Give him the opportunity. It leaves Dylan Wells and Jared Moe down guarding the twine down in Tucson, and Jared Moe is a name you saw a little bit over at development camp, kid from University of Wisconsin. He was a starting goalie there for 2 of his 4 years. He's been playing in the East Coast League for the Idaho Steelheads, and they just called him up. Dylan Wells, he's got 1 game in the NHL for the Chicago Blackhawks. Just throwing it out there.
Signed his AHL contract for the rest of the season too. Just a couple weeks ago, he signed for the rest of the season. So yeah.
Yeah, another guy that played most of the season with Idaho Steelheads and has appeared in 8 games for the Roadrunners with a respectable .907 save percentage and .275 goals against in his time at Tucson. So they'll just have to hold on the fort. And one thing that might do is that might bond the group even more down there. The defense and forwards get together and say, hey, let's bail this team out and give these guys an opportunity to play. So I wouldn't doubt if we don't get to see Matt Villalta on Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, especially with the back-to-back coming up. So, Veggie, you're the starter for at least a week, and Matt Villalta, welcome to the show. And we'll see how these games progress. We don't need to talk too much about that. We talked a little bit about it last night, but who knows how it will move the Coyotes in the standings as we approach the final couple months of the season here. We'll talk about it. You guys, it's time. It's time to familiarize ourselves with the top names in this draft. I think we've all heard of Macklin Celebrini, but there's some names, unless you're, the people, there's some people in our Discord who know these prospects, and kudos to them. For me this week, it was a lot of getting introduced to these names for the very first time, as it is, I'm sure, for both of you. So thankfully, we have our good friends, Bob McKenzie, Craig Button, Chris Peters, Corey Pronman, and NHL Central Scouting. All guests of the show, minus the Central Scouting, because I don't even know. That's not a person. It's a group. So let's take a look at who these experts have ranked in the top 10-ish. And I took the names from kind of an average of who was popping up on these lists the most. If you're listening on audio, there's a chart. We'll tweet this on our Twitter account at PHNX_Coyotes that shows guys and where they're ranked by each of these different draft experts. Obviously, Macklin Celebrini, he's the unanimous number one for both Central Scouting and all of these draft experts. I think that's kind of one that's not going to be a question. And don't know if the Coyotes are going to get lucky enough to grab him. He's probably a Chicago Blackhawk.
Yeah. Yeah, let's all be honest about that. They got no chance of winning the draft lottery or even picking number 2. So let's just bypass the top 2 guys in the draft and look at the guys that will be available to the Coyotes when they pick somewhere after that.
But this is funny, though. I mean, Celebrini's the guy. He's a point a game, more than a point a game guy in college. He's a goal a game guy at BU right now. He's the guy. But beyond that, and Craig, I think now that we're going to start talking to more people. I did make a few phone calls this morning, and it's not like last year where there was a group of 3 and then there was a group of 5 and there were these groupings. Right now it's Celebrini, and I'm hearing it's Celebrini. And they said if you looked at the team's lists from 2 through 15, you are going to get unbelievably varying names on that list, one based on needs. But he said there is no big grouping like you saw a year ago that's clearly separating, and it's probably not as deep of a draft in the first round that we saw a year ago either.
Yeah, I spoke to Daryl Plandowski this morning, actually, for a separate story that I'm working on. And a lot of people have talked about this draft in particular being heavy with defensemen. And I think you'll see that reflected in the guys that we're going to talk about, and with where the Coyotes are trending right now, they might have a crack at one of these top guys, one of these top defensemen. And we've talked, I know we're going to get into this more about what the organizational needs are, but listen, you are always trying to stockpile defensemen in your system, top 4 prospects. I think the Coyotes need more of them. I think you guys agree with me as well. The Coyotes look at their system and say, we don't feel like there's a weakness. We feel like it's balanced, but at the same time, you're always going to be looking for those primary positions on defense and at the center position.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as you mentioned, Petey, about they're not really being that next group, you can see it. Jacob, if we can pull up the graphic again, if you kind of just glance at all these numbers in the middle, except for Macklin Celebrini, there's nobody who's really unanimously any one number. I mean, I think Siliev, he's maybe right there in that next group. But look at, you look down the list, you have someone 5, 10, 4, and 3, all the same guy. You have someone who's the top-rated European skater, but then he's ranked 6th, 8th, 11th, 9th. Like, there's just no unanimous thought here besides Celebrini. So the good news for the Coyotes is if, right now they're 6th worst, and if they end up picking in the top 6, we're looking at 6 guys right now who potentially could be wearing a Kachina sweater in June, and maybe one of them will be great. It's just crazy to see the variance here. But just to go through some of the other names, Anton Silyev's the one I mentioned. He's a defenseman out of Russia. He's kind of that, next, second, third guy, clearly, just based on everybody's ranking here. He's ranked second, third, second, and fourth.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that has Bill Armstrong written all over
6'7".
Yeah. Holy moly. A-Root just said it in the chat as well. And then, you continue to go down that list. You have Artyom Levshinov. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, and this was the guy that I mentioned actually almost a year ago.
Yeah, you did.
Dreaming about who could end up in a he was not ranked as highly at that point, but he's been rising on draft boards, which is interesting. He's at Michigan State now, so why is he rising? If you remember what like Corey Proman told us last year, Chris Peters told us last year, those Russians that the Coyotes drafted, they probably would have been higher in the draft if people had been able to see them live. That's the concern. Well, as we found out later, the Coyotes did actually see them live. That's what's happening with Levshinov too. Now people are getting a sense of his game. Not to mention he's lighting it up at Michigan State, putting up a lot of points.
Yeah, he's a Belarusian kid that I tell you what, he's nearly a point per game guy as a defenseman in college. Like good for him. But he played a year at the USHL too, so I think he's more accustomed to the North American game. And I think to your point, Craig, people get to see him. And when we talked about Anton Silyev before this, the 6'7" guy, like you can watch on video, but you look at his statistics and it's hard to find these statistics. We need to go to our Discord because they know more about the KHL than anybody else in North America. I think we should hire them to be our draft analysts. But you're right. I think it's important. And you talk about Artem Duda getting over to North America and getting to play, those in North American games. It's incredibly important in learning that style of play. So I think Levshinov will get an advantage for playing in college. And he's another guy that you said, Leah, all the way from 2 to 5, but he's in that tier that could be there for the Coyotes. Not quite as big. He's 6'2", but he's a little bit more of a puck-moving offensive defenseman. And you know that the Coyotes need that. He's a right-hand shot, and you clearly stack up the right-hand shot defenseman when you can. So he's a guy that I would think would possibly be available in that Coyotes range. Again, Celebrini's the mythical one. I don't think they're going to get, but Levshinov, he definitely could be a guy that you could see, and we'll do much better at targeting the Coyotes range when we find out where they are.
Yeah, imagine communication too. Like communication is important on the back end. We could be talking about an entire blue line of Russian-speaking defensemen with Simashev and Duda. Hilarious, right? Communicating and nobody could understand what they were saying on the other team.
Okay, I have to be really careful with this, Craig.
Yeah, I wanted to answer Robert Lee's question about do they know who's willing to come here? Can they decline? Do they know if these draftees won't sign with them? Usually you find those sorts of things out at the scouting combine. So that's coming up a little later. They'll have those interviews with players and they'll get a sense of their desires. And yes, that has become relevant with recent years with players. Oh, I'm not going to play for this team. I'm not going to play for that team. Times have changed.
Yeah. What if they get 2 or 3 more Russians on this squad? Can we just get a calendar poster with the Russian mob? And that's the title. I didn't suggest that. Craig did. If anybody's listening over on the other side of the planet, it wasn't me. But boy, that is that's like the Russian 5 was a thing. But can you imagine the Russian mob? A 6'7" Russian on your back? Oh, buddy, yes, please sign me up.
Be careful, Petey. You don't want to accidentally fall off a balcony.
All right. Let's keep moving on. Another guy who's in that top tier, Caden Lindstrom out of Medicine Hat, one of my favorite cities in Canada that doesn't feel like it should exist. He's another guy who's all over the place, ranked 3rd by Chris Peters, ranked 10th by Craig Button, the 3rd highest ranked North American skater on Central Scouting. He's a big kid as well, over 6'3", 210 pounds, and a center. We talked about always needing defensemen and centers. Well, there you go. He's another one who could be interesting in that zone for the Coyotes as well. We can just keep moving down the list as well. You have Ivan, I don't even know how to say these names. I'm sorry. Demidov. That's a great name, by the way. Another Russian. He's a right wing. He's a little bit shorter, 5'11", left shot, but right there in that range, ranked 3rd for your international skaters, 6th by Bob McKenzie, 5th by Button, 8th by Pronman. That's that range that we're going to probably be looking at for the Coyotes. Another one that's interesting is Cole Iserman, who before the season, he was always mentioned sort of in the same breath as Celebrini. He's kind of fallen a little bit, 8th in central scouting for North American skaters, as high as 2 for Craig Button, as low as 9 with Corey Pronman. So that one's a little bit interesting as well.
Yeah, a couple things here with Caden Lindstrom. He got hurt in December and is not playing yet, and I think that's going to be a key that he's got to get playing games and get up. Or he's one of those guys. Remember when Jacob Chikrin, he got hurt during his draft year too, and you started to plummet, and you might be able to pick him off later in the draft because people will be passing on it because it doesn't have that body of work. And then when you talk about Demidov, another forward, he's smaller, skilled, 5'11", and when we talk small, I mean he's not like 5'8", 5'9" small, but in GM Bill Armstrong, small is small. Iserman's the one that's interesting to me because Leah, you're right, he was number 2, and now he's still at the program, and you play for the program, you learn the work ethic, and you got that USA hockey background. But you're right, his points tailed off from where he played a year ago when he was putting up bigger numbers than he is this season. He's still going to be a guy that he's going to be a top 10 pick. And if you could throw him, he's a left shot, put him on the side of any of these young lions that the Coyotes have, I think that would be a great pickup.
And one other guy, or sorry, Craig, did you want to comment on any of those? One other guy on this list is, I think, the best name of them all, Consta how do you say it?
Helenius.
That sounds like a book character. Like, I'm sorry, it really does.
Oh my God, yeah, he could be in Harry Potter.
Yes, Consta Helenius. Are you kidding me? Out of Finland, he's the highest ranked skater on the Central Scouting for international skaters. Yet his highest ranking among the experts is 6 with Craig Button. He's a center as well, a little bit smaller, just under 5'11". So these are kind of the guys. If you look at any of these guys' lists, there's some, obviously couldn't fit everybody on here. But we saw some names. Sam Dickinson's another name that came up a lot. Carter Yakmachuk, or however you say it. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering all these names. I will get them as we talk more about them. But we just wanted to put the names on everybody's radar. Obviously, we're not the ones who know much about them. Those are the experts. We'll get them on our show once the Coyote season ends, like we have in the past. But I just think it's good. And even for me, just this practice of getting to know those names. And once you start seeing the names, then you see them pop up maybe on your Twitter feed or in Discord. Now I'll know when someone's talking about them, who they're actually talking about, just to put it on your radar. This is around the time that we started talking about Logan Cooley 2 years ago too. So it's a good exercise. And it works for just about everyone, minus Dmitry Simashev, who none of us talked about once in the entirety of our draft prep last year.
I told that to Bill when I saw him the other day. I said, we're just trying to get an idea of some names to look out for, but it won't matter anyway, because you're going to come up with somebody we don't know. And he just laughed because he probably will, because that's what he does.
Oh my gosh. Just a reminder too for people to kind of wrap your head around how many picks the Coyotes have in this upcoming draft. We have a visual of that as well. This is another one that you kind of put on the back burner, and now it's time to start thinking about again. As of right now in 2024, the Coyotes have 1 first-round pick, 3 second-round picks, 3 third, 2 in the 4th, 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th. That's right now before the trade deadline. I'm sure this will all move. And in 2025, they're pretty stacked as well. 1 across the board, except 4 second-round picks in 2025 and 2 third-round picks in 2025. So the cupboards are definitely full. I'm sure we'll see some more movement with these as well when the trade deadline comes in just a couple weeks here.
Right. You could see them other package. You could see even at the draft, they could use a couple of those second round picks to move up into the later part of the first round. You just never know what's coming. They do have a lot of draft capital, however. And of course, the scouts love that. They just love, it's got to be so frustrated to be a scout and go to the draft and like, oh, we have 5 picks. That's it. Or we have 4 picks. And what are we doing here? We spent so much time all year and we don't get to do anything. Bill gives these guys capital to work with, and they really like it.
Absolutely. Well, Craig, you had mentioned the organizational needs. Obviously, last year, the Coyotes prioritized taking a defenseman with the first of their 2 first-round picks. We've seen how defenseman heavy the top of this draft is. Obviously, nobody's going to tell us what they're going to do. But if you were the one waving the magic wand, what direction, assuming the Coyotes pick, let's just say in the top 8, what direction would you like to see the team go in, a defenseman or a forward?
Well, what Daryl said to me earlier today is, look, this is definitely a draft that is heavy on defensemen. If there's a, we're not going to pass on it. If there's a winger that comes along and we think this could be a 40 goal scorer in the NHL with the right combination, we might take that flyer. We're not going to, it's always going to be best player available in the opinion of the scouts. But when you look at the preponderance of defensemen in this draft, I mean, that would be my guess. I still think they need more depth. I still think they need more top end guys in their system on the back end. And so when you have an opportunity, when you have a draft that offers multiple players that could be that guy, I gotta believe that's where you go.
Yeah, and I think defensemen, we talk about having the cupboards full, and in the long run, I think that benefits your franchise, because even if you're not able to get them a slot in the National Hockey League club, you can build them up in the AHL, and now they become prospects, and they're available to make you a trade chip or give you an asset that you can move along the other way. I think it's, you look at centers first. If you can find that number one center, I don't know. I mean, maybe someday they'll get a number one center, but for now, I'm with Craig. Unless they get that top pick overall, I think it's going to be defensemen, and we've seen what Bill Armstrong likes. He likes big, strong defensemen that can skate, and I think there is going to be that player available in the top 12 picks. And right now, the Coyotes are looking at 6. Yeah. So last year was 8.
Yeah.
So just saying.
Maybe higher. Maybe they'll climb higher before it's all said and done.
Maybe. Yeah. Their schedule right now is definitely looking like, they might move up in the draft a spot or two.
Yeah, if we can just quickly take a look at the upside down rankings, if you will. And what I love about this screenshot from tankathon.com is that they reward in green if you're losing. It's the opposite of what you would normally think. Normally you see red and you think, or you see green, you think good, but Coyotes have lost 7. It's highlighted in green, but you can see kind of the progression there. This is the upside down standings. Coyotes currently in that 6th spot, which is exactly where they finished last season. 6th last, ended up staying and picking 6th overall. But with that record in the last 10, 2-7-1, you see Ottawa 1 spot ahead of them. They're 7-1-2, have won 4 straight. So Coyotes, I mean, yeah. There's a lot of room the Coyotes can move here, so we'll see what happens.
Is there such a thing as a GM bump? Could that happen for Columbus for a little while? I don't know. I'm just asking.
What the hell happened to our life? It was 2 weeks ago we were talking about playoffs. Crazy. What the hell happened? What happened?
I don't believe it.
Chicago again.
And if it's, I don't believe you,
Craig. If it's Chicago Blackhawks with Bedard and Celebrini, Come on.
Rigged.
I will say this, though. They know how to tank. Like, buddy, that team is awful. Like, that is a bad hockey team. So, yeah, they're tanking. I don't know if it's the right way, but that's bad. That's a bad team.
Question in the chat. Is the NHL the most difficult league to draft compared to, I'm going to show this, okay, compared to MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL, because of all the different international leagues and contracts? I think there are international leagues that, like the NBA and Major League Baseball, look at as well. What makes the NHL the most difficult to me is the draft age. It's younger than the other leagues. You've got 17-year-old players with so much physical, mental, emotional development ahead of them. The projection on these guys is so difficult. And that I've said that, we've talked to that with about scouts many times. It's just really difficult to project where these kids are going to be because they're just nowhere near becoming men.
One more comment before we move on. Dr. Horoshow, Simashev and Levshinov. Oh my God. Try saying that 5 times fast if that ends up happening.
Matt McConnell might have to retire by the time that happens. That'd be awful.
Oh boy. All right. Any final thoughts on draft talk, prospects, all of that before we move on?
Just looking at one of the things that I wanted to point out too is you got to look at what you have already in the NHL, right? So we were talking about defense. I think we all agree. We've been talking about this for a few weeks now. The Coyotes don't have a top pair defenseman on their roster right now. There's a few guys that are probably going to be back, like JJ Mosier, who's an RFA, Sean Dursey, who's an RFA.
Nobody's signed.
Who's an RFA, but you need bodies. You need plenty of help still on defense. And listen, you can't even count on, you look at their prospects, their top guys, you can't count on all those guys even panning out. The odds say they won't. So increase your numbers. That to me, I think, is still a major area of need. And then again, and we've said this a bunch of times, man, if they can get another center, I like what I'm seeing from Logan Cooley lately. Is he a true number one center in the NHL? I'm still not convinced he is, but if you can get two guys around the same level of ability where you have two clearly top six centers, you might be able to make do with that situation instead of having or hoping that you get that generational or even just franchise center. Coyotes haven't had that guy. It's really difficult to get that guy, but maybe you can get by like St. Louis did, right? When they had Ryan O'Reilly and Braden Shen as their top two centers, you can get by doing that.
Well, there's a lot up in the air for the Coyotes on and off the ice. It's a lot of things out of our control, but one thing you can control is where you keep your money. And I highly recommend Desert Financial Credit Union. It's where Craig keeps his money, whether you're looking for a checking account, a savings account, you're looking for loans, for mortgages, all of it. Desert Financial, they can help you out. Check them out. Credit cards, investment options, all of it. And right now, when you open a free checking account online, you get $200 in bonuses. So take advantage of that offer. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200.
And you know what you do next then with that extra $200? You download the Prize Picks app. Prize Picks is the largest daily sports fantasy platform in North America. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance. Yes, injury, so that if your entry stays and gets hurt at the halftime, that player's projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I make my picks and submit my entries in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/PHNX and use the code PHNX for the first deposit match of up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/PHNX and use code PHNX. Daily fantasy sports made easy.
I love things where I only have to just make one decision, like one thing or the other. And then also, I like this from Tyler Prizepick, over 2 minutes of Dumba in the penalty box. If that's a thing, I'm in. And O'Brien.
Yeah, O'Brien is definitely a more than.
I'd like to highlight Xerxes 910's comment. I know, Craig, he doesn't have any money, and that's true, actually. So.
By the way, I don't like that Craig has control. Like, that stresses me out.
That was one of the biggest.
That PHNX sports comment, that's Craig. Like, I don't like this.
Literally, the three of us all have access now.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it.
Frightening. Jacob's right now just freaking out behind the Mac right now, for sure.
Oh, my God. Well, that begs the question. Should a lot of people be in control or just one?
Oh, boy.
And here we go. Get ready.
I might just defer because I'm just tired.
No. No. So
we got to fire. We got to bring the shtick right now, buddy.
This sort of came up on last night's show because the Coyotes, they're in a 7-game skid. We talked about, how much of the onus is on Andre Tourigny. And then we talked about the leadership group. We talked about Shane Doan and what he would possibly be doing in this scenario. We talked about the veteran leadership, who are the leaders on this team. And for 3 years, we've talked about the fact that there has not been a captain on this team, and there hasn't been since Oliver Ekman-Larsson got traded to Vancouver. We've talked to Bear about it in an installment of Bear Necessities, which you can go watch right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. He explains his philosophy on leadership and captaincy. Petey and Craig have different feelings on this subject. Yesterday...
I would describe them as enlightened and dark ages.
Oh my God. The Philadelphia Flyers yesterday named Sean Couturier captain, which means there's only 4 NHL teams remaining without a captain: Arizona, Anaheim, Chicago, and Seattle. Times are tough.
Yeah, what do those teams have in common? They all stink. They're all last.
Here we go.
They're all nowhere near a freaking playoff spot. Do you think that coincidence?
Do you think that the Coyotes should have it? We've talked about why not, a guy will, make themselves known at some point or another. But in a time like this, with all the noise on the outside and the struggles on the ice, is a captain necessary? The floor is yours.
I say you could have a captain if a captain emerges. I agree with Andre on that. I'm not opposed to the idea of a captain. I just think that that person has to be obvious, like Shane Doan was for this organization. That guy has to bring all the elements that Andre talked about in that Bare Necessities episode. He can't just be, the guy that's aware of everything that's going on, the smart guy like Nick Schmaltz, or the talker that's encouraging or pushing people like Clayton Keller. He has to be also the guy that puts the arm around their shoulder like Lawson Krause. If you can find a guy who combines those things, if you can find a guy who can truly inspire the players and speak for the entire group, I'm not opposed to it at all. I just don't know that the Coyotes have that guy yet. So I'm not sure that they're ready for a captain. The other side of this is, I think the whole notion of single leadership is antiquated. It's sort of this sheep mentality that the NHL follows. Oh, you got to have a captain because everybody else does it. Well, show me the data that it actually matters. Prove to me. There's a lot of research on different leadership styles and how collaborative group leadership can actually be more effective because it brings more opinions. People are more invested because they feel like they have a say in
That's in business, Craig. That's in business, not in sports. Like, come on. You have a leader, you have a captain. In hockey, more than any other sport, leadership matters. And you have a captain for a reason. You have 5 captains in football. Who gives a shit? In hockey, it matters. He's your captain. He's your voice of the team to the officials. He's the only voice, the little only voice that can speak to the officials. He's the voice that should be right now in front of the cameras. We should be hearing from the captain. This team's lost 7 in a row. We should hear from a captain. But you know what? They can all hide in the room because there isn't one. Oh, I'm not the leader. You're the leader. I'm not the leader. A leadership group, my ass. Just get one captain. I've been in the room with leadership groups with 7 or 8 guys, and they're the leadership group. Guess what they all had in common? They had a captain. That one guy comes in and goes, hey, coach, we need a day off. Hey, coach, you know what? We really don't want to fly tomorrow. Can we fly the next day? And here's why. It's a captain. And I think it's funny that it is ironic that the 4 teams that don't have captains, 3 of them are in last. It's not, I really believe that's not a coincidence. And while we don't have a captain, look at some of these captains across the NHL. Do you think some of these guys are the guy? You think Jamie Benn is a quality guy that's hugging his teammates? No, he's just the guy. He's the best guy that they have right now. You can walk into the Coyotes room, pick a captain, vote on a captain until you get a new captain, then strip that captain away. Right now, I've said it from day one, Clayton Keller's captain of this team. Make him the C, make him more responsible, put more weight on his shoulders because I think he needs to be accountable. And right now, he's not the guy. He's not the leader. I think it's important in hockey. I think that voice is the voice of the entire room. I think they can bond behind him. And you're right. There is no Shane Doan in there, Craig. There isn't. And if there was, boy, would this be a different situation. There isn't Shane Doan. And maybe Lawson Krause is part of that. I don't know. But I believe that there needs to be a captain to represent this group, especially in situations like this when there's a media press conference release. They know who to go to and they know to step up. When you guys went to Australia, who did all the center ice faceoffs? Who did all the media appearances? Who was the guy that was the face of the franchise? It was Clayton Keller. Just put a letter C on it. Does it affect everything that much? Is it like, oh my God, he didn't step forward. It was one is a unanimous vote across all the counties. Like, no, he's your captain. Name the captain because I think this team needs a leader, and I think it needs a leader more now than ever.
Where do you think media responsibilities and speaking to the media about what's happening on the team ranks on Andre Tourigny's list of priorities for this team?
Very little.
Exactly.
Very
I don't
little.
know. I'm not convinced. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to having a leader if there's a clear-cut leader. I think it's a practice that has just been repeated without a lot of thought. I think Andre's done some reading on leadership styles and what makes effective leadership, and he has a different philosophy.
I bet you there's not a team that's ever won the Stanley Cup without a captain. Let somebody do the research for me. Somebody Google it right now in the chat, and I bet it's never happened.
But again, it's like how many have actually gone without a captain? You point out these
There's
4
my
teams.
research.
Oh, these 4 teams.
You want to win the cup? Get a captain.
I think these 4 teams don't have a captain because these 4 teams don't have a guy. And by the way, all 4 of these rosters stink. That's why they're not doing well. They're just not very good rosters.
Yeah, Adam Henrique, I'd give him the C. Give Bedard the captaincy right now. You might as well. That's what they did to Connor McDavid. Just get it over with. I just think I think Clayton Keller's 25 years old. It's not like he's 19. Like, it's time. Shane Doan was 27. Like, it's time.
That's a good question too, Xerxes. What happens when a designated captain doesn't have the leadership capabilities? Let's talk about Oliver Ekman-Larsson and how that went when they named a C. How'd that work out?
Yeah, it was a disaster. He was the captain. He clearly should have been the captain, and I think it was a mistake that they didn't give him the captaincy in the year that he was promised to be the captain by the general manager, that the coach came in and said, no, and well, no, we didn't promise it. We did promise it. We told him he was captain, and then you're not a captain.
Yeah.
He was clearly the captain of that team. No one will tell me different. He's just a different leadership style, just like Teppo Newman is a different leadership style than Keith Tkachuk. Completely different leaders, completely different. And you've talked to enough people around there, Craig. You know who the guy is. Like they'll tell you. And it's two names. Everyone tells me it's Keller
Or
and
Krause.
maybe Krause.
Yep.
That's what I hear. It's Keller's first and maybe Krause. And that's players, that's staff, that's coach. That's who it is. Like, I don't get it. And is that why they're losing? No. But I don't understand why it's so difficult to come out and say we're doing leadership by committee. Well, then your committee sucks because there's no leadership right now.
That's
leadership fair. Leadership to me is the way they're playing over the last 7 games. Leadership is the guy that's going to shut the door and go, okay, we need to be better here. I don't care. It can be a guy that Brad Richardson didn't wear a letter. He would shut the door and tell you guys, you suck. You need to be better. And some people say, well, he's got to be a first-line player. Kyle Okposo is not a first-line player. For the Buffalo Sabres, he's their captain. He can shut the door and say, we need to do better. I'm seeing a lack of leadership, whether it's a single person or a group leadership with this team in the last 10 days. And I know the arena is heavy over everybody. I get it. But somebody's got to put this team on their back and go, we need to play better. And if you guys aren't going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there and you're going to see me. My motor's going to run for the 16, 13, 12 minutes I'm out there. I'm going to work like hell. I haven't seen it. And maybe that's happening inside.
Let's roll with that idea. Do they, we talked about what great guys they brought in terms of character. Do they have anybody that has that nasty edge like Brad Richardson? Maybe they need that.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer, and I wish I knew these guys well enough to be inside the room. And you don't have to be a captain to have that voice. And Brad Richardson didn't have a captain; it didn't have a letter, and he was part of that leadership 100%. And it's okay to be a little bit of a sandpaper in there. You need the guy that will stand up and go, "What the f is going on?" Shane Doan had trouble with that. So there were often other players that did it. And sometimes it's a goalie. Like Sean Burke would do that. Sean Burke would call his players accountable and be able to stand up and voice it in the room. The one problem with the goalie doing is you better be playing pretty damn good. Because if you're not playing good and you start mouthing off, guys turn on you really quick. And I would name names, but I won't, because that has happened also. Craig, I agree. Maybe there's too many nice guys in there. Maybe there's nobody in there that can look at the guy next to him and go, you're not playing good enough. And that's when you played back in the late 90s and early 2000s, Keith Tkachuk, Jeremy Roenick, Rick Tocchet, Buddy, vicious. We talked about on the show how vicious they were. They were vicious to each other. I've talked to Ulf Samuelsson back when they were at the Pittsburgh Penguins and they were winning. He said there were fist fights. Like it was that much of, you're letting your teammates down and you're going to hear about it. And I think you might be right. Maybe that's another tact. Maybe there just isn't that guy that feels like he's got, and I don't see Clayton Keller being that guy.
Nope.
Just standing on a soapbox and yelling. I don't see Lawson Krause being that guy. So yeah, I don't know if they've got that voice in that room right now that it's all kumbaya and let's hold hands and everybody loves each other. But sometimes that doesn't work. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah. The only guy that when I go through the names, the only guy that I could maybe envision being that guy is a guy like Jason Zucker. I don't know.
They all love Jason Zucker. The only thing that he has over the rest of them is he's played with some of these guys that we've mentioned. He's been in locker rooms that have competed for the highest level, and he's the veteran guy that some guys may be turning to right now. And I honestly thought that would be one of his roles right now. And I can't speak to it, but I don't know if he's that guy. And I think part of it with him is, and we heard it. Remember when he talked to you after he made a mistake that gave up a game-winning goal? He's like, "Oh, I got to be better." And I'm not sure if he's willing to voice opinions if he's not playing at his best. And he might be saying, "It's hard for me to call out somebody else if I'm not the guy." And that's why. And I keep going back to Brad Richardson. It didn't matter if Brad Richardson was performing and putting numbers up on the score sheet. What mattered to Brad Richardson is he was working hard. Yeah. And Brad Richardson, you can always work hard. You can't always put numbers on a board. You can't always score, but you can always work hard. And Brad Richardson did, so he could call people out on their effort. He could, because who's going to say you're not working? So yeah, I do think, Craig, maybe you're right on committee, but right now I think that this looks like there is a void of leadership, and maybe a C doesn't solve that.
I did have Jacob put a poll in the chat, so we can close the poll, Jacob, so I can see the results. But just a couple of comments. Roaring Fork had said the Coyotes don't have anyone on the team that's captain material, but then added when everyone's accountable, no one is. Jen Paul said what they're doing right now is not working. Maybe we need to pivot. The results of the poll, 96. So the question was, should the Coyotes have a captain right now? And 96% of people said yes. So interesting stuff.
1% osmosis said they should move to Quebec. So his 1% vote. Got to get that in there. Craig had to put his glasses on to see it. Yes, Craig. Move the team to Quebec already. They are ready.
That's okay. We already had the Salt Lake City comment at the top of the show. So.
Are they ready too?
Quebec is hilarious.
Are they ready?
Sorry, buddy. That's never happening.
Never happening.
Yeah. Oh boy.
There will never be. And I just don't envision the corporate dollars, the money, the finances, the tenants, the market.
Publicly, they don't like the market.
It doesn't work.
That's simple. Sorry.
I think we've said that before, haven't we, Craig?
We have, yes.
Okay.
Well,
but they have a rink.
They do have a rink. It's
isn't that all you need?
Starting to age.
I don't think you need just a rink. I've been in it.
What if they'd be willing to sell it and put it on moving trucks and send it down this way?
Really nice rink too.
It is.
How many people live there? I don't know, not many.
They got a fan base. What do you mean? Just don't have corporate base or
dollars,
media market, or
is their money Canadian dollars or American?
Well,
okay.
My gosh. All right. Okay. Well, listen, this has been a stressful stretch on and off the ice. So I think we all could use an OGs. Listen, OGs, indica, sativa, happy balance, whatever you need right now. The big OGs, if you're sitting here saying I'm actually vegan, well, there's vegan gummies. They have something for everyone. Whatever thing you're looking for, microdose, from microdose to the big. If you're trying to get to sleep or just have a good time, OGs has something for you, packaged in the most delicious flavors, the fruits, the creams. Check it out. And they're locally scratch made here in Arizona. So to learn more about OGs gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com.
But before you go, stop by Circle K and get your snacks, because trust me, you're going to need them. It's not just America's Thirst Stop. It's also America's Don't Run Out of Gas Stop. And it's not just Leah and Danielle anymore. It is now our diehard Shelby, because she said she waited till under quarter of a tank. Shelby, that is not acceptable. It is now the perfect time to get the new free membership program, the Inner Circle. Save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Save 3 cents per gallon after that, and get every 6th item free of a selection of fantastic Circle K products like their pizza, their coffee, and their ice-cold fountain drinks inside their Polar Pop No Sweat cups. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details.
All right. We're going
to... I still like you, Craig.
All right. Well, we're gonna end the show on a couple of news and notes from around the league, because there's been a bunch of stuff going on this week. And we'll start with our good old friend Phil Kessel, former Coyote, the Iron Man holder, still to this day. Phil Kessel, who's been around the Valley, by the way, still wants to play. He gets a call from his friend Rick Tocchet and has been skating in the Vancouver area. What do you guys think?
Petey, is this a Rick Tocchet special here?
1,000%. I mean, 1,000%. He followed him from Pittsburgh to Arizona, and now he's following him potentially to Vancouver. Clearly, and I tell you what, Rick Tocchet really likes Phil Kessel, and he likes what he has to offer. The one thing, and I think I talked to Phil a couple of weeks ago, he still thinks he can help. Does he think he's a top 6 forward in the NHL anymore? No. And I think as long as he's realistic about the expectations in himself, I think he's got a chance. I think if he thinks he's a guy that's really going to be the old Phil Kessel, I think he's going to be disappointed and frustrated. And when you're that disappointed and frustrated, I think that's difficult in the room. So I think it's important that he understands what the expectations are. So they need to be very clear. And that means management and coaching staff needs to have very clear expectations of what they have and what they expect out of Phil Kessel. And I'm telling you, the problem I have with this, and no knock on Phil, Phil was extremely well liked in the locker room. There was some kind of I don't know where the perception is that people didn't like Phil. People love Phil Kessel. They love me as a following. People like being around Phil Kessel. I just don't know where he fits in the
Bingo.
Vancouver Canuck lineup. This
Yeah.
is one of the fastest, most skilled teams in the National Hockey League. That is, no, by the way, they're in first. I am not quite sure what the missing piece is that they looked at and go, you know what we're really missing here? We're missing Phil Kessel. A Phil Kessel that didn't play in the playoffs for Vegas. A Phil Kessel that was in the bottom six when he was. He was in and out of the lineup on the Vegas lineups a year ago. On a team that didn't play the same style as Vancouver does. So and I love Phil. I just don't know where he fits. He's not on the first power play, but Phil's a goal scorer. You get Phil Kessel in your lineup to score goals. That's why he's there. He's not going to blaze up and down the ice with Elias Pettersson. It's not going to happen. That's not his skill set. He needs to post up on the top of the circle to the hash marks and fire away. And I don't know when that's going to happen for him.
And it's not like you can put him in a role where you're going to be a checking forward. we're going to rely on the defensive side of your game, Phil Kessel. Yeah, I don't get it. I just don't get where this guy fits in the lineup. It just feels like a favor. Maybe it doesn't even work out in the end. It just feels like a favor. I don't know. I don't get this one at all, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not that I really like Phil, and I said I think you can play in this league. I just don't know if it's here. I think he's got to. For me, Phil Kessel might fit on a team right now that's 6th to 10th, 6th to 11th or 12th, in a lower 6 forward role in a second power play group. And I don't think Vancouver needs that second power play group filled. There might be a team there that might be able to put him, but he's also going to have to go there with the expectations that he's going to sit out some nights, that he's not going to play every night, and then the Iron Man streak is now over.
All right, moving on to the news of today. Jarmo Kekalainen is out in Columbus. I am surprised it took this long. I know that's pretty blunt to say, but things have not been going well in Columbus for a while, and especially this season.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember, and I obviously do not cover the Columbus Blue Jackets, but I was hearing whispers of this back in November. So yeah, I'm surprised it took this long. I heard Aaron Portzline on the Jeff Merrick show today talking about how, you would have thought this would have happened over the break, but then Porty said he had reason to believe that the process began during the All-Star break. When you look at the moves that Columbus has made to bring in players to try and remain relevant, and then you look at what's happening on the ice, and you look at the Mike Babcock situation, put it all together, like what in the hell is happening here? There was some question as to the timing, but Porty made the really good point today on the Merrick show. Like, we're approaching the trade deadline. If you're not confident in this guy at this point, why would you let him handle another trade deadline where there are a bunch of moves? It's like moving on from your scouts after the draft. Why did you let them even make moves at the draft? No time like the present to make a change if you just don't have confidence that it's working anymore. And that's what John Davidson did.
Yeah, well, I honestly, when I read the headline, and this shows how much I follow hockey, I thought this happened 6 months ago. Like, what? Like, this is just happening. By the way, the Mike Babcock thing, honestly, on its own should have been enough. It really should have. But you look at bringing in Johnny Hockey that was going to save the day. I don't know if you've looked lately. Do you know how many goals Johnny Hockey has right now? 7.
It's amazing how he's fallen off the radar, isn't it?
7.
Yeah.
Like, that's a guy that scored 40 goals with the Calgary Flames. He has 7 goals right now. Patrick Laine, just nobody fits there. Like, they never came up with, and this is what we talk about with this organization. You talk about waiting for the right fit and putting guys together that fit in what you're trying to do. And you've got a model and you've got a plan. I don't know if they've ever had a plan in Columbus. It doesn't look like they do. They just keep throwing new players at a target and hoping one of them sticks because they don't fit in what they were doing. When they brought Johnny Hockey in, there is no way he fit into that roster. It just didn't make sense to me. And I'm surprised Johnny went there. And I imagine he's miserable right now. It's 4th to last with 7 goals. I can't imagine he's loving life there. This is long overdue. Now, this is John Davidson's last kick at the can, because you can only go through so many coaches and so many managers, and then it's going to be John Davidson that has to try something different. I think this is an area that's it is a nicer city than people give credit to. So I think you can attract free agents there if you're putting together a plan, a coach, a team that is looking up and trying to win, but they're not. And unless they're a team that's winning, you think guys would rather move to Scottsdale or Columbus, Ohio? Do you think they want to move to Miami or Columbus, Ohio? I mean, no offense, but unless they're winning, they're going to have a hard time. And right now, that's one of the things against them. So I think this is a huge step in them maybe potentially finding out what exactly this franchise is. And unfortunately, when you make a change like this, it just sets your plan back years.
You know, I don't mean to sort of crap on another franchise, but you're right about Columbus. First of all, I love the arena. I love the city. I think it's much better.
I
than
love Columbus.
Yeah. But you look at that franchise, they have 2 playoff series wins in their entire history. They've never been past the second round. Never even got close to getting past the second round. There just hasn't been any success in that franchise in their entire history.
Yeah. So they are getting an outdoor game though.
They
So
are.
they can cross that off their list.
Sigh.
Yeah. How can they get that next year? Like, come on. Like, really?
I mean,
listen, Steve Mayer said everybody's going to, the idea that
I know
NHL is everybody's
Coyotes
going
don't
to
deserve it right now.
once they get their arena situation, ownership situations figured out here, it's done. They're in.
Yeah. How long have we been saying that?
All right.
Moving on. I don't want to talk about that today.
Last bit of news, and this one has taken the internet by storm this week. Morgan Riley. My goodness. If you don't know what happened over the weekend, a Ottawa Senators player, Ridley, took a slap shot into the empty net, and Morgan Riley did not like that, and he went over and cross-checked him in the neck and got suspended for it. I think, what was it, 5 games in the end?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
For Petey, as a coach, first off, listen, I know that players don't take kindly to that sort of thing. It's like a bat flip in baseball. And I honestly, I think those codes of the game are a little overplayed and a little ridiculous, like stepping on the logo in the locker room. Shut up. Don't put it on the floor if you don't want it stepped on. But this was an overreaction. Just curious for your thoughts. Do you want a guy to deliver a message in that situation? What do you want to see as a coach?
Here's the deal. Ridley Craig's 21 years old. It's the Battle of Ontario. It's Ottawa versus Toronto, and you are icing the game as a 21-year-old rookie, and you get the opportunity to ice this game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, come on. Yet, do I think that it's a completely classy move? No. Is it that big a deal? No. No.
I think it's hilarious.
But Morgan Riley's reaction beyond the pale, just ridiculously. He could have seriously injured this kid who's one of the stars of this Ottawa Senators team, and then what? And that's the part that you get. Here's what I do. If what I think, you can talk about the code, fine. Morgan Riley needs to skate by the kid. He can give him a little push, like nothing that would even get him a 2-minute penalty, just a little push. But I think then there's some words said.
Wow.
Hey, buddy, we play you guys in 2 weeks. Keep your head up, and just give him a little shove. That's it, like a ginger shove. And now you put oh my goodness, he's probably right. And now I bet you Ridley Griggs shaking in his boots when he goes out to play them the next time, and maybe he doesn't play on his game. You don't even have to do anything. You've just put the fear of it into him, or you shut your mouth, and when you play him in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, you take care of it then, and you take care of it legally and within the rules and during the confines of the game. What he did there was absolutely ridiculous. And honestly, 6 people said 5 was too many. Do 10, do 20. He took a stick foul to the head for a guy scoring a goal. I was ridiculously uncalled for.
Yeah, no precedent though for him. I mean, there's a lot of things that factor into this.
And he was frustrated. Sure.
Yeah. And did the hit start on the neck or did it ride up? All those
up the shoulders. Yep.
Yeah, but I thought it was a ridiculous overreaction. But more importantly to the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're in a wild card spot right now. They're 4 points ahead of the New Jersey Devils, who are out of the playoffs right now, 5 points ahead of the Islanders. They're in a precarious position right now, and he's going to miss 5 games. And Morgan Riley's really important to this team. So to me, when you do something like that, I get there's a code. I kind of agree with you, Petey. Say something, say watch out next time, but don't put your emotions ahead of your importance to the team. That's what he did here. He hurt his team with his actions. They're going to be missing a very important player for 5 games.
Yeah, he leads all their defense in points. He leads the defense in ice time. Like, he's their defensive leader. He really is. And for a team that's on the precipice right now, goaltending defense are one of their biggest concerns. A guy like Morgan Riley being out of the lineup is a huge problem. You don't need the distraction. You don't need the trouble right now. Honestly, I feel bad for Brad Treliving, because the only thing a Toronto Maple Leaf fan wants to see is a Stanley Cup, and this team isn't winning it. Like, there's too many holes. I still think they're a playoff team, and I still think they get in. But man, their hill to climb is just ridiculous. And why would you put yourself in a spot that you potentially could knock yourself out of that wild card spot? I know the Devils are only 4 points back, and you said that the Islanders are 5 points back. The Islanders with Patrick Roy have got points in 4 of 5. The Devils are playing better hockey. They have goaltending issues themselves. Both those two teams could catch the Toronto Maple Leafs. They could, especially if Toronto can't defend and can't stop the puck. So I think he that was a selfish move. He reacted just on instinct, and it's unfortunate because that team is in a tough spot.
Leah, there is one other piece of news before we move on. Connor Bedard saw my tweet last night that Brock Faber's playing really well,
and he said, and I took that personally. So I'll be in the lineup tonight. Connor Bedard is returning for the Blackhawks to try and reclaim, the mantle of Calder. I swear that's the reason he's back.
Probably.
Like, I'm sure of it.
I've heard he listens to our show. He goes to listen to CHGO first, and then he jumps over to PHNX.
Yeah,
and it was absolutely the reason that he is back in the lineup. He better check. I tell you what, if there was a Rookie of the Year defenseman award, it's Brock Faber. I'm telling you, he's the best young defenseman I've seen in a while. So cool. And he's different. He's not Cale Makar. Like, that's not the way he plays. It's not his style of game. He's a well-rounded 200-foot defenseman that can defend and provide a little bit of offense. He's not Cale Makar that can skate like the wind and be an offensive powerhouse.
All right. Well, this message is for Osmosis in the chat. It is February 15th, and I can go outside right after the show, crack open a beer, and drink one in the sun on my patio. Not sure you can say the same about Quebec City. Not sure you can say the same about Columbus. And you certainly can't say the same thing about Toronto. One of the great things about living here in Arizona is patio beers in February, and the beer selection that we have, which is Four Peaks beer, whether it's a WOW, a day drinker, a golden lager, a hazy IPA, a stout, a porter, a kit lifter. Four Peaks. They have something for everyone who loves beer. They have a beer for you, I promise. And if you've never been to the 8th Street Pub, check it out. The food there is phenomenal. Visit fourpeaks.com/locator to find all your favorite beers and events. Check out at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. You must be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks, and please enjoy responsibly.
Is your house looking tired and old? Is it time to get rid of that dirty, old, out-of-style tile? Save the moving costs and realtor fees, and just get new flooring. With Empire Today, you get the shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today can't be beat on quality, service, and speed. Empire Today is easy, quick, and convenient. Empire Today services their own warranties. If an issue does arise, just call Empire. They service all warranties themselves. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive up to $350 off discount when they use the promo code. Guess what it is? PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details.
All right. One last thing before we wrap up. We've had a different producer every day this week, and that's because our producer Danielle is in Cooperstown, New York right now, and you might be asking why. Here's some photos of Danielle in Cooperstown, and what she's doing is actually amazing. So Danielle was invited by the Baseball Hall of Fame to speak about her journey in baseball and trans inclusion in the game as a whole. And Danielle also donated photos from the D-backs playoff run. If you don't know, Danielle is a phenomenal photographer, and was given a behind-the-scenes tour of the photo archives at the Baseball Hall of Fame. They're going to be tweeting out video later, so you can look at the Baseball Hall of Fame Twitter account to see more of this. But we wanted to highlight our producer Danielle because this is such a cool thing. Like, this is a huge deal, and we want to highlight Danielle's achievement. And that's amazing that they asked Danielle to do this. So Congrats,
Proud
Danielle.
of Danielle, and get home. Enjoy your time there. You've worked really hard to get there, and we're all proud of you here at PHNX. Congratulations, and knock it out of the park.
Absolutely. Well, that's a high note to end things on. Anything else before we wrap up for the day?
I vote Craig as our captain.
Danielle's our captain. How about that? Oh boy. All right.
Is there a game tomorrow?
There is.
I'm so glad Greg is muted. It's just fantastic. We should do that most. Can we do that and just mute?
You have the power. That's the other thing.
Like the entire show. How's that? I'll just mouth words and people read my lip.
I tell you what, yeah, I don't know. Ratings might go.
I don't want to be a captain, Petey. I'm looking for the least amount of responsibility possible. So,
buddy, there's a game again tomorrow. Who do they play?
Carolina.
Who? Yeah. Oh, buddy.
HK.
Oh my God. It doesn't matter who they play right now. They just have to play better. And Veggie better be out of his freaking mind. That's
well, we know Carolina's going to have like 50 shots on goal.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Oh. And it's hard to get in on the inside.
And
the one thing
over in shots.
Yeah, and the goal, maybe like their goaltending hasn't been. No, sorry, Auntie, but their goaltending hasn't been.
He's hurt again. So, yeah.
You literally could say that every time you play Carolina. Sorry again, Auntie, but you could say that again.
All right.
Yeah. Story for another day.
We'll be live tomorrow night after that one. So tune in on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube live or later, hit the thumbs up on this video. We sincerely appreciate it. And if you're listening on audio, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We drop audio only episodes weekly. So you want to make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. And you want to make sure you're a diehard as well. So you can chat with us and our Discord. So you can get 20% off merch, 20% off on events as well. And we have a couple of events planned. I was chatting earlier today about 2 events in the works. So I promise they are coming.
Is that what that Bing thread was going? Bing, bing, bing,
Bing?
Bing. I don't know. It bings. It makes noises. Bing, bing, bing.
I knew.
Trying to take a nap at 1:30 in the afternoon.
I knew there was a 0% chance you read that whole thread.
Of course not. I was in bed. I'm trying to nap. At 1:00 was nap time.
Okay, it's called Do Not Disturb.
Oh, I can't figure out how to do that, but boy, did I want to wring all of your necks. Like just 19
Turn off your phone. You know how to do that.
19 messages. 19.
This is what we do so we can plan events.
1:00 in the middle of a workday. What are you guys doing?
This is our work. All right. You can follow us on Twitter at Greg S. Morgan, at SPeters Hockey, at Leah Merrill, at Jacob_Franklin4, and you can follow the show on Twitter at PHNX_Coyotes. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we will see you all tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.